I have an obligation to be in that room. I represent 200,000 people in Northwest Georgia who duly elected me to be here today.
Look, folks, we were not kidding when we said that there was a Republican civil war taking place. What you just watched there was Republican on Republican violence. Now, we previously had been covering this week the civil war at the federal level as MAGA Mike Johnson fired Mike Turner, who was the head of the Intelligence Committee, Republican, been a member of Congress since 2003. Because of his support for Ukraine and NATO, Trump wanted him off the Intelligence Committee, so MAGA Mike Johnson got rid of him. That's pissed off a lot of Republican Congress members. That's at the federal level. What you just saw there was in the Georgia State Senate. What was happening earlier in the day was the Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who's really no fan of Donald Trump, banned a Republican state senator by the name of Colton Moore, who's like a total Trump cultist, said the most outrageous culty things for Trump. But Brian Kemp was giving his State of the State speech. As the governor, the big speech, he banned Republican Colton Moore from attending. Colton Moore shows up, and then other Republicans call the police, is what you saw there. They kind of physically pushed him away. I mean, as I watched that clip, you could go back and rewind it. It looks like Colton Moore took a little dive there. I mean, that push didn't look like it was that hard of a push, but Republican on Republican violence between the kind of real Trump culty people and I guess the less Trump culty people, that's at the state level. We're seeing that at the federal level as well, and that's in that MAGA Mike Johnson, Mike Turner dispute. Let's show you what else happened, though, at that Georgia State House event during the State of the State address. Colton Moore was then arrested. So Brian Kemp then and the Republican Speaker of the House, they're all Republicans in Georgia. They then ordered that Colton Moore be arrested by the police. He then gets arrested. Here, watch this.
Go ahead. Do you have any concerns about operating the Philippines?
Now, one of the ironies that our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, pointed out was that now that Colton Moore was arrested, his case is going to be prosecuted by the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis. And Colton Moore previously demanded that Governor Kemp stop Fani Willis or else a civil war was going to take place. Now, of course, Colton Moore is one of Donald Trump's favorite people. So about a year ago, Donald Trump said the following about Colton Moore. Highly respected Georgia State Senator Colton Moore deserves the thanks and congratulations of everyone for having the courage and conviction to fight the radical left lunatics who are so badly hurting the state of Georgia and the USA. Failed DA Fani Willis, who has allowed Atlanta to become a murder zone with almost no retribution. Shockingly indicted your favorite president, me, for a perfect phone call. She's bad for America. So Trump went all in on his praise for Colton Moore about a year ago or a little bit more. And just so you have a sense of who this Colton Moore guy is, this was his statement about kind of civil war. Let's play it.
My goodness, how many people in my district questioned that election? I mean, and now that we've got 19 people who are facing the rest of their life in prison because they spoke out against an election. I mean, you know, I told one senator, I said, listen, I said, we've got to put our heads together and figure this out. We need to be taking action right now, because if we don't, our constituencies are going to be fighting it in the streets. Do you want a civil war? I don't want a civil war. I don't want to have to draw my rifle. I want to make this problem go away with my legislative means of doing so. And the first step to getting that done is defunding Fani Willis of any Georgia tax dollars. And hopefully Representative Jordan and Representative Biggs will follow suit in Congress and strip her of her federal dollars too, because she is not upholding her oath to the Constitution.
And now the irony is that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will be prosecuting this case against Colton Moore. Here's what he previously had to say about her. Let's play this clip.
What type of action do you want?
This is an emergency right now. I'm calling for an emergency special session. I've had senators ask me, what do you do when you have an emergency special session? First step, Steve, defund Fani Willis. Now, these senators, they want to use semantics with their constituents, and they want to say, well, she receives local funding or she receives federal funding. Well, she also receives Georgia state tax dollars, Steve, and my constituents do not want their hard-earned tax dollars funding this type of rogue power. Okay. The second thing we have to do is we have to investigate Fani Willis. They say, well, what would you investigate? What about the fact that the indictment comes out the day before the jury even finishes and concludes, right? We need to investigate what coordination she's had with the U.S. Department of Justice. There are so many things to investigate. What about the fact that half of her inmates at the Fulton County Jail have yet to be charged with a crime? I mean, when the citizens of Fulton County have to start paying for this and not my citizens in Northwest Georgia and across this state, they're going to think twice about what she's doing, because instead of their neighbor getting murdered and their other neighbor getting robbed, and all she's worried about is taking on political prisoners, you know, maybe she'll stop and think about that.
Now, finally, just to remind you about the dispute at the federal level, right? MAGA Mike Johnson, this is undisputed, was ordered by Donald Trump. You got to fire Mike Turner, who's the chair of the Intelligence Committee. Mike Turner, Republican from Ohio. It was Ohio's 3rd congressional district, the Dayton area. It's now Ohio's 10th congressional district. And Turner was the chair of the powerful intelligence community, but he was very critical of a lot of the MAGAs who were parroting Putin's talking points. He made that very clear on the record. So Trump said, get rid of this guy, MAGA Mike. We need people who essentially will be weak to Putin and will do Putin's bidding, in essence. So MAGA Mike got rid of Mike Turner. Just to show you kind of what Mike Turner had to say about other Republicans. This is from April of 2024. But, you know, this is what Mike Turner's views were. And ultimately, Mike Turner had to, you know, say positive things about Donald Trump, because if you're in the Republican Party, you have to. But in terms of someone, if you had to pick a Republican to chair the intelligence community, Mike Turner's a pretty normal guy, all things considered. But that's why they kicked him out. They want more people like Colton Moore to be their leaders and less Mike Turners. So you saw Colton. Let me show you Mike Turner, a Republican from Ohio. Let's play it.
Let's turn to Ukraine, an issue that's important to you and your fellow Republican chairman, Michael McCall, who runs the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman McCall made a comment this week about what he says sounds like Russian propaganda from some conservative media, and why it's so difficult to explain to Republican voters why supporting Ukraine is important. He told Julia Yaffe, quote, "I think Russian propaganda has made its way into the United States, unfortunately, and it's infected a good chunk of my party's base." He singled out primetime shows on conservative channels. Do you agree with him? And how big is this problem?
Oh, it is absolutely true. We see directly coming from Russia attempts to mask communications that are anti-Ukraine and pro-Russia messages, some of which we even hear being uttered on the House floor. I mean, there are members of Congress today who still incorrectly say that this conflict between Russia and Ukraine is over NATO, which of course it is not. Vladimir Putin having made it very clear, both publicly and to his own population, that his view is that this is a conflict of a much broader claim of Russia to Eastern Europe, and including claiming all of Ukraine territory as Russia's. Now, to the extent that this propaganda takes hold, it makes it more difficult for us to really see this as an authoritarian versus democracy battle, which is what it is. President Xi of China, Vladimir Putin himself have identified it as such. We need to stand up for democracy. We need to make certain that we know that authoritarian regimes never stop when they start an aggression. Ukraine needs our help and assistance now, and this is a very critical time for the U.S. Congress to step up and provide that aid.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to keep an eye on this. infighting at the between Republicans. We'll keep you posted, of course, every step of the way. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe and let's get to 4 million subscribers together.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 500,000 followers.